New year, new format, new deck. For Christmas, my brother-in-law gave me my very first legendary magic creature, which means I can now play the commander format. And here is my commander deck, which is definitely not optimized, but might be the best I have considering my very limited card pool. It's going toe-to-toe with other commander decks, the store-bought variety, but I'm having fun, and that's all that matters. I'm going to start out with going over my land base. So we have 16 mountain cards, just the basic mountains, followed by 11 plains, also the basic lands. There's a lot of utility in basic lands that people sometimes forget. They don't come in tapped, and they're very searchable. Then, as far as mana fixing, I have Transguild Promenade and Unknown Shores, neither of which are great. Transguild Promenade comes in tapped, and then requires you to pay 1 mana or else it'll sacrifice itself. But then it can provide mana of any color. And then Unknown Shores can provide colorless mana on its own, or 1 mana of any color as a filter. Moving on to the red cards next. We have a Crowing Crusader, which actually works really well with the commander, specifically because you can take all the different combat tricks and target a Crowing Crusader and start amassing an army of 1/1 tokens, which can also be used with the combat tricks, since they get recycled over and over again. Got Fire Shrine Keeper, which is 1 mana, 1/1, but it has Menace. Again, it plays real well with combat tricks. And then in the super late game, you can pay 8 mana, tap and sack, and then deal 3 damage to 2 target creatures, which is also really strong. And remember that commander is not necessarily slow, but a lot of commander games can get to those absurd mana totals of 7 or 8 or 9 mana that you can play around with in the super late game. At least in the terms of casual commander like we play. We've got Riot Piker, which is 2 mana, 2/1, but it's got first strike, so it's a little bit better than a normal Goblin Piker, except it must attack each turn if able. Benefits from having a multiplayer format, where usually you can get in and attack someone each turn for at least a little damage, and it has first strike, and you're always threatening those combat tricks in hand, so people get a little afraid to block it, even if you're bluffing. Next is Generator Servant, which has the mana storing ability, sort of like a battery, where you bring it out, and then later in the game you can tap and sack for 2 mana, and it will give a creature haste, which is decent late game or even a little bit of ramp. Very red card, I like that a lot. We got Viashino Racketeer, which can rummage. First you discard a card, then you can draw a card from the deck. It's not the best type of effect, but I don't have a lot of card filtering in my possession. It's definitely one that could get rotated out when I get something better. Followed by Lobber Crew, which is a defender creature, and can tap to deal 1 damage to an opponent. 1 damage to each opponent, even better in a multiplayer format like Commander. And then it untaps every time you play a multicolored spell. And I think there are like 4 or 5 in this deck total. And of course there's Feather the Redeemed, but that's the commander, and if you're playing your commander over and over again, it's usually not a good sign. Got Splatter Thug with the Unleash ability, so it's either a 2/2 or a 3/3, but then it can't block. It's also got First Strike unconditionally, which is pretty good. Good for threatening. I usually bring it out as a 3/3. This is followed by Kessig Malcontents, which is an option for unblockable damage based on the number of humans that you control. Then after that, it's just a 3/1 on board, which isn't great. Heirs of Stormkirk is one of the very few vampires I have in the deck, but that's actually important for one future card. It has the Intimidate ability, which I'm really on the fence of, because it's color hosing and I don't like having an advantage just because I sit across from the wrong person that day. On the other hand, it's a 4 mana 2/2, so it's way below curve even as it starts snowballing. I think you'd have to have like at least 3 turns before you'd say, oh, that card's decent. And I think that that's an okay middle ground. If this card just read unblockable and it didn't have the color hosing, I'm not sure I would be too upset with it. It'd be a lot stronger, definitely, but I think that's more philosophy and less less deck profile. This is followed by Stone Shock Giant, which has the Monstrous ability. Specifically, Monstrous 3, so we'll get 3 +1/+1 token, +1/+1 counters, and then when it becomes monstrous, it makes all grounded creatures unable to block for the turn, which can be enough to just knock down everything and then swing in for lethal damage. Got Pitchburn Devils, 5 mana 3/3, so it's obliterating the vanilla test. But on top of that, it has a shock effect. I'm sorry, it has a lightning strike effect to deal 3 damage to target creature or player when it dies, which I think that means it's about 5 mana worth of value. Stormbreath Dragon has flying, haste, and again protection from white, a color hosing effect I'm not thrilled to have with, but it's a real big cool dragon that can also become monstrous and then deal unblockable damage based on the number of cards in the opponent's hand. Very, very strong, exciting card. Might get a magic marker and scribble out protection from white. Got Wild Celebrants, which is my only piece of artifact removal in the deck, despite having white as a color. Otherwise, it's not great. Moving on to the supporting red cards, we have Dragon Mantle, which is an aura. That's important because I have a card that searches auras. Comes in, and you get to draw a card, so it instantly replaces itself, and then gives your creature fire breathing, which is pretty good. Got Madcap Skills, another aura. Enchanted creature gets +3/+0 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, which is the same reason why Menaces is so good in this deck. It's definitely a contender for rotating out as soon as I get a better aura. This is followed by Seismic Stomp, which actually has that Stonecrusher Giant effect of preventing things from blocking. Very strong when you need to get in. I have some ramp in the form of Battle Hymn, which adds 1 red mana for each creature I control, and keep in mind that factors in tokens, and you can get quite a lot of creatures real fast in order to power up Battle Hymn, and then maybe even power up a card that's wearing Dragon's Mantle, give it fire breathing and deal a bunch of damage. Also works well with X-Spells. Moving on to the combat tricks, we have Crowd's Favorite, which gives +1/+0 and First Strike, which is very mediocre, but the Convoke ability makes it even better in my opinion. Because then it can come out of nowhere without your opponent expecting it. Titan Strength, not as good as Giant Growth, but instead of 2 health, you get the option to scry 1. And consistency is pretty important when your deck doesn't have much draw power or filtering. Dynacharge has the Overload effect, so I have the option of actually boosting the entire board, although it costs 4 times the amount of mana that targeting 1 creature would be. Uncanny Speed gives haste and +3/+0. This is not the greatest combat trick, but it does help to get in with damage when the path is already cleared. These 3 cards have the Blood Rush ability, which is why they were included, And I didn't realize at the time that Feather the Redeemed only works with instants and sorceries. So it does not work with creatures that think they're spells. So these three are definitely able to be rotated out. Maybe not Scorchwalker. That's a lot of damage for 3 mana, potentially. And First Strike is also good. They might all stay in. Maybe not Skinbrand Goblin. Next category is burn damage, starting with Electrickery, which is tricky to say. Deals 1 damage to target creature, or Overload, 1 damage to all target creatures you don't control, which gets even better in multiplayer format. Got Dual Shot, which can deal 1 damage to up to 2 target creatures, and I think if you target one of your own creatures, then you get that back with Feather the Redeemed's effect. Shock is just 1 mana, 2 damage, no questions asked. I don't know why, but this copy of Shock doesn't have flavor text? I guess Feather the Redeemed doesn't have flavor text either. Maybe it didn't fit. There's a lot of blank space. I don't know. Interesting card. Magma Jet, 2 damage in any target, and you get to scry 2, which is decent. Lightning Strike, 2 mana, 3 damage, real premium rate. I don't own Lightning Bolt, but that's okay. Got Flames of the Firebrand, which I think this is another one where you could actually target one of your creatures in addition to some meteor targets in order to recycle the card. Annihilating Fire, 3 mana, 3 damage, is not a great rate, but it can exile, which can be a big benefit depending on matchup. Chandra's Outrage is 4 mana, but a total of 6 damage. And that 4 damage to a creature actually hits a lot of good breakpoints. Is followed by Star of Extinction, which is land disruption. Not really what it's meant for, but it's funny that you can. And then it's a board wipe, dealing 20 damage to all creatures. And anything that survives the star is actually really impressive, and you might lose. But as far as an ultimatum, this is one of the best cards to try to reset the game. And I quite enjoy it. I think it's really silly and really fun. Outside of this card, though, I am praying for a miracle. After that, we have Volcanic Geyser, the X spell, and it just is pretty much Fireball but costs 1 more mana. So, not as good as Fireball. Okay, moving on. Next we have white cards. Starting off with Suntail Hawk. 1 mana, 1/1, because this is a theme. But this one has flying, so it can get in for damage even in the late game sometimes. Enchantment Keeper. This is parallel to Fire Shrine Keeper. I think there might have been a full cycle of these. This time the ability is First Strike, and the 8 mana sack ability gives your whole team +2/+2 till the end of turn, which is a pretty strong effect. Very expensive though. Kinsbale Skirmisher. It's a bear with an upside, specifically giving +1/+1 to target creature, which can be a creature already on board and able to attack, which means that it can be fast damage, which is good. We got a Hate Bear, except it's a 2 mana 1/3, not a 2/2. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. And this can be devastating in the right matchup. If this card is too oppressive, I'll rotate it out and put something else in the deck. We got another vampire, Skyblade of the Legion, which has flying. Otherwise, it's a 2 mana 1/3. We got Capuchin Knight, 2 mana, 1/1, but it's got First Strike, and it's got expensive off-color fire breathing. So, pretty strong. Got 2 different Griffins. Griffin Sentinel, which has Vigilance, quite a good ability. And then Sunspire Griffin, which has 1 more attack, but is 1 color deeper. 1 colored mana pip deeper. So, 2 Griffins, more flying in the air. Court Street Denizen is a nice tapper. Then we have Heliod's Pilgrim, which is actually pretty important to fetch auras in the deck. Next up is Seller of Songbirds. 3 mana, 1/2, but it gives you a 1/1. So not passing the vanilla test, but sometimes going wide is better than going tall. This is followed by Bishop of Rebirth, which has Vigilance, is a 5 mana 3/4, and when it attacks, lets you resurrect a 3 creature with CMC 3 or less, which could be Feather the Redeemed if it happens to be in your graveyard, but putting it in your graveyard instead of your command zone is super risky, so I don't think that's exactly a good plan. Of course, we have a Sarah Angel. Look, another angel. And this is just a classic card. I could not put it in if I owned a copy. And then we have the Miracle, Entreat of Angels. This card, for its miracle cost, is incredibly strong. Even at its normal cost, in a late game, it can give you 2 or 3 different angels, and that's 3 angels is a lot of damage in the air or a lot of chump blocking. Either way, this card can win you the game. Then we have Vampire Zeal. This is the card that cares about vampires. It hasn't mattered a single time, but maybe in the future it might. Otherwise it's a simple contract trick, +2/+2, not bad. Got Sheltering Light. Another combat trick, doesn't boost, but it gives indestructible, and you get to scry a card. After this, we have Show of Valor, +2/+4. That's actually a lot of toughness, so you can survive a good amount of things with +4 toughness. Followed by Battle-Wise Valor, which is another +2/+2 and scry 1. This one's actually a functional reprint of Vampire Zeal, but with scry 1 for 1 more mana instead of the vampire benefit. Got Pacifism, which is another aura, actually a very strong aura. It is very good soft removal because it helps you deal with something. Doesn't prevent it from tapping for abilities though, so could still be stronger. Chosen by Heliod, another aura that draws a card, and it gives your creature +0/+2. The main reason it's here is because of Heliod's Pilgrim fetching auras. This is followed by Knightly Valor, another aura. This one comes with a 2/2 Vigilant Knight, but otherwise gives +2/+2 and Vigilance. This card's pretty good in that you don't get 2-for-1'd when your opponent will use one card to remove your creature that's got an aura on top of it. I like that a lot. Then we got some conditional removal. We got Smite, destroy target blocked creature. Blocked is the keyword in that effect. Legion's Judgment, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Avenging Arrow, destroy target creature that dealt damage this turn. And then Bright Reprisal, destroy target attacking creature, but you draw a card. Adding the text draw a card can make a mediocre card good and a good card great, but in this case it makes what is probably a pretty bad card okay. Moving on to colorless, we have of course Ornithopter, which is great for combat tricks since it's flying. It's extremely cheap. It's 0 mana. Couldn't be cheaper, I bet. And sometimes you see this with different auras on, which I think is funny. Traveler's Amulet is a little bit of fixing, which is strong, but it's pretty expensive. It's also a tiny bit of deck thinning, so not too bad. Prosthetic Prism also draws a card. Another instance where drawing a card actually makes it pretty good. Otherwise, it's a 2 mana card that lets you filter mana. We have the 1 mana rock in the deck, Hierophant's Chalice, which drains life for 1. It's only one opponent, not each opponent, so you're only ever getting 1 life out of it. Otherwise, it taps for colorless. We have 1 piece of equipment, Angelic Armaments, cost 4 to equip, which is pretty pricey, 3 to get out, which is also pretty pricey, but gives +2/+2 and flying. and becomes a white angel too, if that happens to matter. Next up are gold cards. We got Sunhome Guildmage, which has 2 different activated abilities. Both of them are good, but both of them are expensive. Otherwise, it's a bear. Truefire Paladin, another bear, so 2 mana 2/2. Comes with Vigilance naturally, very strong upside, and then 2 different activated abilities, both of which are good. Gaining +2/+0, so double off-color expensive fire breathing, maybe? At this point, we probably don't have a keyword for that very specific combination of effects. Or First Strike, both of which are quite strong. This gets pretty threatening whenever you leave up some mana. Next is Wojak Halberdiers, 2 mana, 3/2, so it's actually better than a bear. And then it has the Battalion ability, but I have never once gotten this off where you're attacking with so many creatures. And then the benefit isn't bad, it's First Strike, but 2 mana 3/2 with upside. That's real strong. Next up, we have 3 mana 2/2, but it's got haste. And then on top of that, it gains +2/+2 until the end of the turn you play it. So you can rush in for 4 damage a lot of the time. Also hasty, we have Sky Knight Legionnaire, which has flying and haste, and then on top of that is a 2/2 for 3 mana, which is not great. And then the final card is more conditional removal. We have Arrows of Justice for 3 mana, hybrid red-white, so that means it's red and white color identity, and counts for devotion as 1 red and 1 white, just as a point of trivia, and deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Not the best card, but it's a very flexible removal option. And that's the deck. I've won a few games, but more importantly, I've had a lot of fun with it. There's so much room for improvement, and as I get new cards, they're definitely going to be rotated in. That being said, it's important to remember to have fun and play the game casually every now and then.